Saturday night, her family was coming over for dinner, a tradition Alexandra insisted we keep every year. I was up at 6 a.m. scrubbing the deck, prepping the yard, slow smoking brisket that had been marinating for a week. The house had to be spotless. The dining table set with our wedding china, only used for special occasions. Alexandra was tense, but not in the usual my parents are coming kind of way. No, this was colder, distant, like she was hiding something massive. Around 5:45, I realized we were short on chairs, so I walked out to the garage to grab a couple of folding ones. And that's when I heard my name. Thomas, Alexandra's brother, was outside, just on the other side of the wall, smoking, laughing. I still don't get why you married that loser. Dad was right. Divorce him before you get pregnant and end up stuck. And Alexandra? The woman I loved, the woman whose law school I fully funded. She laughed lightly like it was all just strategy. I'm working on it, and she said, my lawyer says I can probably get half his business. I stood frozen in the garage, like my spine had turned to ice. 7 years. I worked myself into the ground to support her dream of becoming an attorney. Every extra shift, every night waiting up while she studied. I skipped vacations so she could buy law books. And now there she was, smiling, planning to carve up everything I built, while still sleeping in my bed. I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I walked back in, grabbed the chairs, walked past my own reflection in the hallway mirror like nothing had happened. Dinner went on as usual. I poured wine, carved brisket, laughed at her dad's old stories. And Alexandra? She looked at me with that same sweet gaze, like she wasn't plotting to bury me in the very home I built for us. I don't know how I made it through that dinner, but when I said goodbye to her family at 11 p.m., I knew one thing for sure. The man Alexandra thought was a fool was done staying silent. That night, after everyone was gone, Alexandra kissed my cheek and whispered, "Get some rest, babe. I'll clean up. You're the best husband." The best husband. I almost laughed, but I didn't. I just smiled, nodded, walked upstairs like a happy man. But inside, I was nothing but rubble. Once she went to bed, I slipped back downstairs. Not for a drink, but to begin the work of a man who had been betrayed, but not broken. I opened my laptop, and for the first time in years, I started to suspect the woman lying next to me. Her laptop had a password. Strange, she'd never used one before. I tried the usual suspects, our wedding date, the name of our old dog. Third try. Bingo. Her inbox popped open. I didn't need to dig very far. Subject: Post-divorce asset strategy, draft 3, from attorney Margot K. line by line, column by column. There it was. Everything Alexandra and her lawyer had been planning for the past 3 months. She had listed the valuation of my company, my salary, our joint accounts, even the personal savings account I'd set up to grow the business. Every single dollar laid out, calculated, labeled potentially recoverable assets. My fist clenched, but it didn't stop there. There was a string of messages from a contact saved as D. I kept scrolling, and then I saw it. "He still has no idea, babe. Just a little more time." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just financial betrayal. This was an affair. 6 months. They'd been messaging back and forth for 6 months, calling each other, "Babe, miss you. Can't wait to see you again." While I was working overtime, investing every spare dollar into new equipment and expanding the team, believing I was elevating us to the next level, just like Alexandra used to say. She was out giving her heart and her body to someone else. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after. Monday morning, I called the office and said I wouldn't be coming in, because I had a new full-time job now, preparing for the biggest battle of my life. My lawyer's name was Mike. A friend had referred me to him. I gave him everything: screenshots, emails, documents, text logs. Mike looked at me, let out a slow breath, and said, "In this state, if you don't protect your assets ahead of time, she could walk away with half your business." Half of the blood, sweat, and 14-hour days I had poured into building it. No, not happening, not on my watch. That night, Alexandra came home with a bowl of hot soup, asked how I was feeling, said I looked pale, tired. She curled up beside me on the couch, put on Netflix, ran her fingers through my hair and smiled. I nodded, smiled back, told her I loved her, and she smiled again, like nothing was wrong. I sat there quietly, looking into the same eyes that once made me want to marry her. And I told myself, if you want to bring down a building, don't start with the roof, you start at the foundation. The next morning, Alexandra left early for work like always. She kissed me on the cheek, told me not to forget to call the plumber for the leaking faucet in the living room. Her voice was sweet, so sweet it made my skin crawl. In just a few hours, that woman would be sitting in her law office, working on a strategy to steal everything I'd spent years building. But what she didn't know was that I had a strategy of my own, and I was already one step ahead. I called my accountant, Frank, asked to meet at a cafe near his office. Not at my company, too many eyes, too many ears. And I knew if Alexandra had already met with her lawyer, she'd likely already spoken to Frank too. Frank showed up carrying his iPad and a look of concern. James, he said hesitant, I was just about to call you. Alexandra reached out last week, said she was helping you prep for a meeting with the potential investors. I wasn't surprised. I asked him to open the books. Frank pointed to a few marked lines. Suspicious wire transfers, invoices with missing serials, transactions without clear dates. Nothing illegal, but just enough to raise red flags if thrown into a courtroom. Alexandra, or rather her attorney, was building a case to paint me as financially reckless, a foundation for claiming half the business. We sat there for over 3 hours, combing through the numbers line by line. I got to work, paid off all equipment debt to limit exposure, restructured contracts with key partners, redirected my payroll into a new account, and most importantly, I erased any trace of Alexandra from the company. She never worked there, not 1 hour, not one contribution. There was no way I was going to let her walk away with what my hands had built from dirt, sweat, and time. That afternoon, as I stepped out of the cafe, my phone buzzed. A name I didn't expect. Magnolia, Alexandra's younger sister. We'd never messaged, never been close. She was different from the rest of their family. Quiet, observant, and the only one who didn't look at me with condescension. Her message was simple. Can we meet this weekend? There's something I think you need to know. I replied with one word, yes, and then I turned and walked away. My heart wasn't pounding from fear. It was beating with clarity, because I knew this was the missing piece, the one I needed to bring everything down. Saturday morning, I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, not because I was anxious, but because I needed time to run through every possible scenario in my head, just like I always do before tearing down an old structure. Magnolia arrived right on time. No heavy makeup like Alexandra, no smugness like Thomas, just a quiet presence, a black coffee, and a soft, low voice. I've seen it all, James, and I can't stay silent anymore. I stayed quiet, let her speak. I saw them, Alexandra and Dominic, together at your in-laws' lake house. That weekend getaway you missed. Remember? The one you skipped because of the water damage at the site? I nodded. I remembered all too well. That night I was tearing up moldy flooring in a flooded home, texting Alexandra to ask if she was warm enough. Meanwhile, she was wrapped up in Dominic. They didn't know I saw. I walked into the kitchen to grab wine and saw Dominic come out of her room. At first I wanted to believe it was nothing, but a few weeks later, Alexandra got drunk and confessed. I felt nothing, just hollow, like the frame of a house with no support beam left. I asked her why, Magnolia continued. She said, he's the backup plan. He has everything James doesn't. I didn't flinch, didn't react, just sat there with the same dead calm of someone staring at the ruins of what used to be home. They're waiting for her to make partner. Then she'll file. Dominic's rich, connected, on her level, she said. She begged me to stay quiet, but I can't. You don't deserve this, James. When I looked at Magnolia, I didn't see pity. I saw remorse, from the only person in that entire family with a conscience. I nodded, thanked her for telling me. No long speeches, no dramatics, just truth. Before she left, she touched my hand gently, her eyes a little glassy. I'm sorry, truly. I always thought You deserve better. That night, I came home to find Alexandra curled up on the sofa, wrapped in the custom-knit birthday blanket I'd given her for her 30th. She smiled when she saw me, and I looked at her like she was a stranger wearing my wife's face. I walked into the kitchen, washed my hands, and whispered to myself under my breath, "The board is flipped. The mask is off. Now it's time to strike." Monday morning, I launched the first move of my counterattack, a perfectly crafted false crisis. I sent her a text at work, panicked tone, full of urgency. "I need you tonight. Something major at the company. One of our biggest clients is threatening to cancel. This could be a collapse." A few minutes later, she called back, her voice soft, soothing. "Calm down, James. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. I'll head home early. We'll handle this together, okay?" I nodded, but in my head, I was already smiling. That afternoon, the house was spotless. The dining table set with our finest china, the one Alexandra insisted we only use for special occasions. And beside my plate, a thick folder. No cover, no face-down secrecy, just there. When Alexandra walked in, she wore a confident smile, the kind of smile someone wears when they think they're the director of tonight's performance. I called my parents and Thomas. "They'll be here at 7. I figured they could help us talk this through. Sound good?" I nodded. "Great idea. I invited Magnolia too. Figured we should have everyone present." She flinched, just for a second, but she covered it well. "Oh, sure, that's fine." 7 p.m. The doorbell rang. Elijah, her father, came in first, holding a bottle of expensive Italian wine. Then Pamela, Thomas, his wife, and finally Magnolia. She met my eyes, hers quietly asking, "Are you sure about this?" I gave a subtle nod. Everyone was now in place, 7:30 p.m. Everyone seated. Alexandra sat to my right, Elijah to my left, wine glasses full. I stood up, lifted my glass with a calm, steady voice. "Before we get into company matters, I want to propose a toast to family, to loyalty, and to the truth, finally seeing the light of day." Glasses clinked. No one quite understood, but no one spoke. I sat down, opened my tablet, and mirrored it onto the big living room screen. Eyes started to shift toward me. "This isn't about the business," I said calmly. "It's about this." I tapped play, and Thomas's voice filled the room. "I still don't get why you married that loser. Dad was right. Divorce him before there's a kid, and you're stuck forever." Then Alexandra's voice, crystal clear. "I'm already working on it with my lawyer. We can get half his company." The room exploded in silence. Elijah's face turned pale. Pamela's jaw dropped. Thomas froze like a statue. And Alexandra? Her skin turned ghost white, like flour. "James, what are you doing?" she stammered. I didn't answer. I simply tapped again, and the slideshow began. Screenshots of her text with Dominic, her meeting schedule with the lawyer, dating 3 months back, bank transfers into her private account. And I still wasn't done. I switched over to the final spreadsheet. $43,600. That's how much I paid. Law school tuition, books, housing, suits, midnight Ubers, every penny. Then I opened a copy of the property transfer agreement, the mortgage application she filed, her email to the company accountant with a business valuation request. Elijah slammed the table and stood up. "Is this true, Alexandra?" Her eyes welled with tears. "It's not like that. I didn't mean, I wasn't." Thomas sat in silence, subtly deleting messages off his phone. I pointed. "Go ahead, delete all you want. I already saved everything." Alexandra snapped. "You're destroying this family." I replied in the calmest voice I've ever used. "No, you did that the moment you chose betrayal over loyalty." I stood up, lifted the folder next to my plate. "I filed for divorce this morning. I don't need your signature. I'm not asking for those lost years back. I just need to keep moving. Alone." Curtain down. No applause. Just a man walking off stage. Not victorious, but free. I left the house just before midnight, a canvas bag slung over my shoulder, stuffed with my laptop, notebooks, a few shirts, family photos, and the leash from a dog that once slept curled at my feet. No one chased me. No one begged me to stay. And honestly, even if someone had, I wouldn't have turned around. I drove through the night to a small apartment I'd quietly rented a week ago. Not luxurious, not spacious, but clean, quiet, a place I knew without question everything inside belonged to me and only me. I unlocked the door, set down my bag, flipped on the soft light, and sat on the hardwood floor, my back against the wall. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just breathed. One deep breath, like I hadn't exhaled in years. The next morning, I called the office, told the team I'd be working remote for a while. No questions, just quiet support. I shut down all joint accounts, redirected my business emails, changed passwords on every financial platform. Every click, a clean incision into a love that had long since turned septic. Day 3, Magnolia texted. I heard Alexandra move back in with her parents. Her dad is furious. Her mom, she's starting to ask, is that really who my daughter is? I replied simply, thanks for letting me know. I hope you're holding up okay. She responded, warmer than I expected. Actually, I just told my family I'm dropping the program they forced me into. I'm going to study what I actually love. Because of you, I finally had the courage. I set my phone down, eyes drifting up to the low ceiling above me. Not proud, not relieved, something rare. Peace. Day 5, Rachel, Dominic's wife, called my attorney. They'd met, compared evidence. Turns out Rachel wasn't just a betrayed wife. She was also far smarter than Dominic ever gave her credit for. She began sharing documents to support my case. Two women, Alexandra and Rachel, once believing they were in control, now seeing reflections of themselves in each other. I tidied the apartment, hung a few old photos, mounted the very first certificate I ever earned, my electrical training certification from when I was 20. The same piece of paper Alexandra once scoffed at. Not a real degree, she said. Now it hangs in the center of my wall. That night I took the dog for a walk. The moon was high, the wind was soft, and somewhere along that quiet stretch of sidewalk, I smiled. Not out of joy, but because I'd survived. 7 years, lies, betrayal, demolition. But now I had a new foundation, and this time, I'd build something stronger than steel. That afternoon, the rain returned, soft, steady. I sat on the wooden chair by the window, my dog curled at my feet, his head resting on an old torn sock. My phone buzzed. Alexandra. James, can we talk? Just once. Just to talk. I didn't respond. A minute later, my lawyer called. James, Rachel just sent over more documents. Dominic pulled the same thing with 2 other women. All 3 are willing to testify if it comes to that. I closed my eyes, took a long, deep breath. Truth doesn't always need to scream. Eventually, it finds the light. At 2 a.m., the final message came in. Alexandra, I've lost everything. Dominic left. My parents won't speak to me. I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize what I had until there was nothing left. I'll sign whatever you want. I won't ask for anything. Just, please, say something, anything. I set the phone down. I didn't reply. Not because I was cruel. Not because I wanted revenge. But because some words just come too late. And by then, they don't mean anything anymore. 3 days later, my lawyer sent over the finalized divorce papers, signed by Alexandra. No disputes, no demands. She had left the asset division section blank. Instead, she'd written just one line. I forfeit the right to claim. You gave me more than I ever deserved, and I lost it all. I signed, and as the ink dried, I felt the chapter close. No pain, just silence. A week later, a small package arrived. No return address. Inside was a handkerchief embroidered with my name. A wedding gift from Alexandra, along with a folded note. I don't know if you kept anything, but I kept this. I'm sorry. Not to be forgiven, but so you'd know. I finally understand what I did. I folded the note back. Not in anger, not in forgiveness, just because I'd already walked too far from that place. That evening, I walked in the light rain, down a familiar road, past the house that once belonged to the 2 of us. The kitchen light was off, No one inside faking a smile. No voices behind cabinet doors. Just an ending. The last message I received came from Magnolia. She moved out. The house has new owners. People are starting to realize she's not who they thought she was. I replied, I hope you live the life you choose, not the one others expect from you. You deserve that. I don't know when I'll love again. I don't know if trust will come back easily, but I do know this. When a man rises from ruins, he never comes back the same. He becomes a better version of who he used to be. This closes the story of James. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever lost everything, remember, anything rebuilt by your own hands will always stand stronger than anything handed to you for free. If this story touched something in your heart, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more real stories, raw, honest, and healing, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because here we don't just tell stories, we heal together. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one. From someone who once broke and is still learning how to live again, one day at a time.